how would you approach it as a team manager? What are you going to tell them that they need to do?
Well, I think it's just a case of don't get a slowdown and stay up there at least. But the drop-off in points is so big. The leader, the winner of the race, gets 25. You know, only 5th place already down to 10 points. That's a really big drop off, 15 points from 1st to 5th even. And if you're further down than that, then it's even worse. So, yeah, it's very important that you qualify well, as we know, but possibly out of all of the circuits, Monza is the least important. You can race your way up the field if you're able to. It is possible around this circuit, unlike the Nürburgring, which we'll be visiting a couple of times today as well.
And we saw plenty of passing in the first 3 days of competition here. A couple of double overtakes. Ryan Barneveld thought for a moment on the first day of racing that he had a chance of getting the KFC's Kernel Choice for best overtake. However, in that final race on Thursday, Moritz Lohner said, I want to go around the outside of Thibaut Casabon into Ascari. That award was mine.
Yeah, exactly. And so he won that on that particular day. And yeah, fair play to him as well. He's here in this race as well, as you can see, just past Bono House. So you're looking at there for Mercedes. He's got an important job to play for them. But yeah, Lerner's going to be important because I don't feel like he's been on quite the form that he was on the online rounds in Poland as well. He was pretty good in Munich as well, actually. Finished up there in the top 10 in the drivers' standings. But here in Riyadh, it's not quite been as good for him.
Well, here we go then, I think, to get qualifying underway. It is going to be the Master of Monza that will hope to once again find his way to the top, and he's the very first driver to head towards the line. Let's ride on board with the RAG number 15 and take a look around this temple of speed. In towards turn number 1, brake at that 150 on the left-hand side and down into first gear. Use the curbs to rotate the car, and as early on power as you can get to maximize the slingshot, maximize the momentum as you swoop your way 1.2 odd kilometers through the Curva Grande into the Rettifilio chicane.
And Marcel Chinchik has sort of designed himself as the master of Monza over the course of especially this LAN event, but previous ones as well, and the regular online season too. He's been so strong over the course of that season. His first chicane, they're not quite so good compared to where maybe he needs to be, and he's got to slow down through the second chicane.
Instantly for RAG, one driver looking to start from the back, and well, major drama instantly.
And that's big for Porsche Coanda as well. We were speaking about those two and maybe being the two favourites going forward with this event here today. RAG Esports not getting off to a good start because, as you say, Chinchik is so strong at this circuit. He knows how to win here, but he won't be able to do it from the back of the grid.
The good news is Casabon's been relatively quick here as well. Not necessarily as stunningly consistent as Marcel Chinchik, but very much expecting him to be able to hopefully bring some speed as well. So that middle sector, like we said, almost 2 seconds off where we'd expect him to be. And so for Chinchik, the benefit will be he's going to the slowdown has come at a track where we know he will be able to pass. But we talk about the points and what he needs to do. I think RAG were expecting him to be number 1. Now for Casabon, there's some more pressure, and for Chinchik, the pressure is to work up through the field as he runs to the line.
Yeah, the problem is he's not maximised his best track, which is going to hurt RAG Esports, I think, over the line for Marcel Chinchik. It's going to be a 48.3 from him, so that's 1.3 seconds, 1.5 seconds, maybe, or 2 indeed, I can't do maths, 2.5 seconds away maybe from where the pole time is going to be. If we can get below that 46.0 mark, then that is going to be the region where we get pole if we get a time that quick.
Luke Bennett's been rather frustrated, I think, so far through the first 3 days of competition. You can also see his teammate Enzo Benito working through in qualifying. Oh, Luke Bennett's not happy with that. It's a 46.4, 4 tenths off, I think, what we'd expect. The final sector, 3 tenths lost alone.
Yeah, he's not been having the best weekend, has he really, Luke Bennett? Got knocked out of the Drivers' Championship in really frustrating fashion at the Nürburgring. And unfortunately, it's not started very well on day 4 here on the Sunday either. Can Enzo Benito maybe do something here for Team Redline as he makes his way towards the line? He's going a little bit better than his teammate, but will it be pole? Yes, by just over a tenth.
Not much excitement because right now we really haven't seen a proper representative lap time. I think we still expect drivers to potentially go into the 46.1s. Just a note, team logos not showing on the screen. We'll get those up in a few moments' time, but of course, you can always head on to the Run Sport mobile app to be able to pick apart those timing details a little bit more. Head on to the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store to download it now. Sebastian Job, boy, does he have a job to do in that G2 Esports BMW. It's a rather easy pun, if we're being honest. The sector time's relatively competitive, and at the line, it's the first 46.0 of the session.
And that's going to be up there. Seb Job knows it. he knows that that time is going to be very, very difficult to beat, and it's probably going to have to be one of the Audis. Don't think it's going to be Yuri Kastrup by the looks of that middle sector there. He'll be a tenth or so away, but he'll be looking for a front row here. He'll be important for Miles, because let's not forget that Kastrup has maybe not been as strong as Beneke or Lerner over the course of the season. Kastrup will need to accumulate those points to get them towards finalist mode, though.
And of course, Kastrup 1 penalty point away from a qualifications ban, slides his way up into second, jumps in front of Enzo Benito, and at least grabs one spot inside of the front row for the Mouse camp momentarily. Here's Baldwin, that first sector, about a tenth off where we expect maybe some of these drivers to be. The second sector, maybe 2/10 off, but I think trending closer to Yuri Kastrup than to Sebastian Job as he brings that Mercedes out of the final corner. The little bit of change in BOP since the spring major has meant that Baldwin, amongst the best of the Mercedes runner, has struggled to be able to get towards the top of the field, and it's only going to be a 46.2, but it is in front of Kastrup for second.
I'm surprised about that. I didn't think he'd be able to manage that, actually, but yeah, front row for the moment. Now, this is going to be a big challenge to Seb Job's pole position time at the moment, or at least it was on the way in. I don't think the sector times are going to quite be enough for that 46.0 that is needed. Maybe G2 Esports are going to be off to the dream start here. RNG Esports certainly aren't. Thibaut Casabon looking to sort of make up for Marcel Chinchik. Slow down there on that lap. It's over the line for the Frenchman. He's up there as well, only 5th place.
And so already 7 drivers with times on the board. It leaves just the 2 Porsche Commander Esports drivers, one of the Miles Audis, 1 Mercedes AMG Petronas car, and then the G2 Esports number 99 of Isaac Price. First up, it's Hypermac Backham that will power his way towards the line. 34.8 in that first sector. Actually relatively competitive to what we just saw out of James Baldwin just a couple of moments ago. So it's going to be interesting to see if Backham's going to be able to find his way forward to where we expect Josh Rogers to be at the very front of the qualification order. It's only a 46.3 and he slots inside of the top 6.
It's very close, other than Seb Job at the moment. It's very, very close from second down to 7th at the moment, and that small mistake has put Luke Bennett a long way down. Josh Rogers will have to work his magic then for Porsche Commander Esports. We know that he can. He's won on the first days of each of the competitions. He's won all of his races. He's been absolutely fantastic this weekend. Unlucky not to win the Drivers' Championship. Now looking to lead Porsche Commander Esports team to the teams, and it's second place at the moment for him.
Yeah, those sector times weren't necessarily trending too well, and so for Rogers, at the very least, able to work his way forward and get onto that front row, qualifying not the be-all and end-all. That second sector from Isaac Price, very, very competitive, but maybe that first sector, half a tenth or so off from where he would have wanted to be. Can it be a G2 Esports BMW lockout of the front row? Our MVP so far at Monza, Jeffrey Riedfeld, in another BMW. The number 99 to the line and just inside of the 146.2s, but unfortunately, it's just behind Josh Rogers.
Very good start for G2 Esports here in qualifying. I know that they need to convert in the race, and sometimes the BMW just fall away ever so slightly on some of the circuits, but Isaac Price has given himself a good chance of being near his teammate Job there, who's at the top. Bono House makes his way around the Parabolica right now as well for Mercedes. Of course, this team, the only team in the top 6 running that manufacturer here today. Over the line for Bono House, it's a 46.3. That puts him in 9th.
Quarter of a second splits the front 9 cars. Luke Bennett just outside that benchmark. Marcel Chinchik, the only driver to have suffered a slowdown. Here comes Moritz Lohner. Very competitive first sector. Pretty tentative in some sections, it would seem, in that second sector where we traditionally expect the Audi to be quick. It's in this final sector where the Mercedes traditionally brings more time back in comparison to the Audi. But in that drag race to the line, Moritz Lohner sweeps out of the curve Alboreto and is going to dip into the 46.3s. But for Miles, not exactly what they wanted to see. Kastrup, the best of their drivers, I think.
And out of all the circuits, I think Yuri Kastrup is the best at Monza. This is where he's qualified so well in the past, and nearly did well on day 2 as well, until an unfortunate incident at Ascari. But here is your starting grid.
So Marcel Chinchik, oh, the master of Monza, has it all to do from the back. A slowdown means he lines up alongside with Luke Bennett. Another one that is not enjoying the best of starts to this final day, the championship Sunday for our team championship. Moritz Lohner back in 10th spot. Bono House will roll alongside with Mac Backham and Thibaut Casabon rounding out the back half of the grid. It'll be Enzo Benito, the feisty Italian, that lines up alongside Yuri Kastrup, the best of the Miles Audis. James Baldwin Baldwin, Isaac Price, Joshua Rogers, and then Sebastian Jobe gets the job done. It is the fastest qualifying lap by ALJ that goes the way of the G2 Esports BMW. And for Sebastian Jobe, it's just the first mark of what's going to be a long, lengthy day.
Well, he didn't compete in all of the regular season, of course, but when he got into the ESL R1 Championship, he was fantastic, showing that once again he has the pace. Despite not having the experience of everybody else on the Rensport platform, he can compete with the best.
We're going to be in for a fun front row as well, because that is a rivalry that harkens back to 2020 and the Porsche Tag Corey Esports Super Cup, where Sebastian Jobe was able to dethrone Joshua Rogers. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how they continue to battle at the front. Of course, let's talk about Jobe for a second here. Not just, of course, one of the best sim racers that has very much developed his talents over the last handful of years. Those talents developed so far that Sebi is now the official test sim racer for the Red Bull Racing F1 team. It's not just about esports anymore for Sebastian Jobe.
Yeah, and I've heard they're pretty good.
Not bad.
that team. So yeah, fully deserves that, by the way, to be there and it's developed over such a long period of time, but now has been at the top for quite a while as well in his career. It's only the next step really for him to come to ESL R1 and start to dominate. Let's not forget, he nearly made the major in those 3 rounds that he managed. There were obviously question marks about whether he would have gone had he made it anyway, but he nearly made it, and that's the point. I think that the development and the way he was able to step into Rensport was absolutely fantastic.
Drivers get that final warm-up before we go, and for Marcel Chinchik, that's a look on the face that I don't think we've seen too often. Some frustration, some trepidation for a driver usually so full of energy and full of enthusiasm. He's been pegged back and now very much has to dig deep and respond.
He certainly does, and Seb Jobe certainly doesn't have that problem here. He's starting right from the front, and there is the pit wall, if you like, for G2 Esports, arguably having the best qualifying there out of everybody. Well, I say arguably, I don't think it's arguable actually. Price and Jobe up there inside the top 3 places. They've just got to convert now in the race, and that's the man who might be able to stop them.
I'm going to throw you under the bus, but not in the way that you think. How many races do you think we get before we get a team into finalist mode?
Well, the minimum is 4 as far as I worked out the other day, so it's possible that happens, I guess. I'm going to go with 6. Yeah, 6, is that too many? No, I'll go with 6 then for finalist mode, sure.
And how many races today?
Oh, well, that could be a very long time. As I say, it may be, yeah, I'll go with 7 maybe. I think a first team to get in finalist mode will go straight through. You don't have the same problem that you do in the drivers of being ganged up on, do you? Because you have a teammate there, so I think it'll be a little bit easier for that team if they're on their own.
So, could be done in a similar sort of time span to what we had in the Drivers' Championship. The drivers finishing up that warm-up session and now getting gridded up. Team managers will be talking to not 1 but 2 drivers, and inter-team communication will be so important.
It certainly will, and playing that team game as well, it will be something to watch over the course of these 9 laps.
It is the fight for $600,000. 12 teams whittled down to 6, and now it's going to be a lengthy day on Championship Sunday to sort it out. The lights go out and we go racing once again at the Temple of Speed. Sebastian Jobe drops the hammer and will lead them down into turn number 1. But look at the team games coming into play. He gives the draft to Isaac Price, and Price is going to clear Joshua Rogers on the run into the opening braking zone. The Porsche Coanda driver tries to fight back, but it's the BMWs that power out of turn number 1 in the lead.
G2 Esports having the dream start here. Josh Rogers couldn't get off the line quite as well and didn't really have the speed towards turn 1 there. He got overtaken, and it's side by side between Enzo Benito and Thibaut Casabon for 6th place at the moment. These positions for minor points way back, while G2 Esports are 1 and 2.
Almost 3 wide further back into the Reto Filio. Look at those team logos on the left-hand side as well to be able to see where the teammates can work with one another. Casabon and Benito go door-to-door on the entry into Lesmo 1. It's the Italian in the BMW that has the inside, and Casabon's got to be careful. Cannot afford to be shoved out wide, especially with Chinchik still running at the very back of the field and trying to work forward. Moritz Lohner's got a great view of that fight though, as we swoop out of Lesmo 2 and rise up to Ascari.
But the biggest fans of this fight are the top 5 and all of those drivers, because they are really racing away as a result. Moritz Lohner has to slalom through Enzo Benito there. He'll head to the outside now in towards Ascari. This could be a repeat. Oh, it is. Moritz Lerner with a repeat on the outside of Ascari, just as he did on Thursday. He does it again on Sunday.
It wasn't as good as the move on Thursday, if we're being honest, but it's an early contender for the KFC's Kernel Choice for Move of the Day. Oh, Moritz Lerner's come and is ready to fight. He'll continue to look forward now to try and close the Thibaut Casabon, but at the end of the lap number 1, just 9 laps of racing, a short 15-minute affair, Sebastian Joe from Isaac Price, from Rogers, Baldwin and Castorp, the top 5.
Mouse are having a decent start here, but I tell you one team who aren't, Team Redline, the team's champions from the spring season, having a bit of a disaster at the moment. Moritz Lerner trying to get near to his teammate Yuri Kastorp here for 6th.
Isaac Price has dropped down to 4th. Not sure what's gone on in that G2 BMW, but that's an important swap down through the field. Backham's trying to fight a little bit further back, I think, as well. But as we watch out of that opening corner, look at the run that Sebastian Job has got. Baldwin slides to 2nd, and Rogers now in that final podium spot.
He is almost exactly where he was before, but the drivers either side of him are now different, or in a different order at least. Isaac Price heads to the outside. He's going to get very squeezed there and almost on the grass, and so decides to back out of that one in towards the 2nd chicane. So not sure how James Baldwin managed that, but it's great news for Mercedes with Bono House all the way down there.
And so we'll settle into the rhythm. Remember, 25 points for the win, 20 points for 2nd, and ultimately both drivers in this pairing and all 4 drivers across the team have to tally up to 150 to enter finalist mode, where just 1 driver has to win. Here's a look at the replay then as we head off into that opening corner. You can see the toe that Joshua Rogers was being fed initially by Isaac Price, but now Sebastian Job, the teammate, tries to help the Isaac Price number 99 out, and then 3 wide they went.
It's just the BMW straight line speed. I don't think there's anything more to say than that, really. James Baldwin was very strong on the brakes, though, and slides it in. Fair play to him. Gets ahead of Rogers and Price in towards the 1st chicane. That was a very nice move indeed. It wasn't a simple slipstream Monza pass. It was nice and late on the brakes and very well executed as well. Inadvertently, Isaac Price has helped Sebastian Job, though, because he's now given his teammate an 8/10 lead.
It was 2 for the price of 1 in that one for James Baldwin, and we've got 2 early contenders now for our move of the day. I think we're going to be quite busy in tracking that. Don't forget, we also track defensive moves. We'll see how aggressive teams will go on the defense if they're able to work together. Once again, Isaac Price just getting absolutely swarmed in a straight line. This time it's Yuri Kastorp in that Maus Audi that will try and get to the inside through the exit of that first Roger chicane. Price trying not to be squeezed onto the gravel, and now as he tries to get the power down, once again just being let down potentially by the traction, the top speed of the BMW, but Kastorp seemingly getting a slightly worse exit.
Well, he stayed ahead through the chicane as Price, or kept the inside at least for the Curva Grande, so we'll hold on for now. And Yuri Kastorp will decide to stay in line, because if they fight too hard, then they could invite those from 6th on backwards back into the fight. Josh Rogers wants to retake this place from James Baldwin as well. It's a nice lead for Sebastian Job, and this battle is only going to grow that gap further.
And for Rogers, sitting in 3rd, Backham's back in 9th. I don't think this is necessarily the way that anyone thought this would go. R8G and Porsche Coanda were definitely the favourites coming into today, especially given the performances yesterday. Right now it's G2 in the best position of them all, and interestingly, it is the Maus Audis that are the 2nd best. Casabon, the best of the RAG cars in 7th. Chinchik's only been able to get past Bono House so far. Yeah, and that's a bit of a surprise, to be honest, given the way that he performs around this circuit. This is arguably his strongest one as well, although maybe it is just with the Audi and the pace there. I'm sure there's a bit of both going on there, and I'm sure he won't like me bringing that up, to be honest. But he does need to make up some places. So do Team Redline. Enzo Benito down in 8th for the moment. That's 4 points. Luke Bennett 10th. That's 2 points. 6 points from the first race for Team Redline. Are you kidding me? And at that rate, how many? We probably need a good 20-something races for Redline to get into finalist mode. Yeah, there's a long way to go, that's for sure. Still at the front, it's 8/10, but as you pointed out, Isaac Price getting past allowed Job to break away and slightly break the slipstream. It's Baldwin and Rogers a little bit closer and heading off into that first corner, as Benito is going to slide to the inside of Thibaut Casabon, who doesn't even offer a defense. And just on Rogers there, by the way, that was quite smart from him. He's realised the same situation that we have. Sebastian Job has got a bit of a gap, and if Rogers fights with Baldwin, that gap's only going to grow more, and it's only going to get worse, and that gap's just not going to come back. So he's staying in line for the moment. He's not going to stay there the entire race, but he just needs to make sure that that gap stays in check, and maybe they can just start to bring it back again. But it's going to be difficult. Once you get a bit of a gap around here, it is hard to pull it back in the length of the race that we have. Josh Rogers, I'm sure in so many ways, was heartbroken at the end of Friday when his contact with Jeffrey Riedfeldt as we were in that finals race with 3 drivers in finalist mode ended with Rogers in the wall and Max Benneker grabbing our Drivers' Championship. Rogers still grabbed second in the points at the end of the day, but for the Porsche Coanda Esports driver, there's only one target. That was #1 in the points, and with now the team to work with, it's going to be interesting, especially because we talked about this a bit in the pre-show. Some of these drivers are leading their teams. Some of the other drivers are hoping to support their teams.
Yeah, and there's a big difference there because of the way that this championship is won. When you're in finalist mode, you have to win a race, of course. Even though these are 24 of the best drivers in sim racing, not all of them can win in this field, we think anyway, not without big problems or you know, on a normal day. To be honest, I don't know if I'd put Sebastian Job in that category. I might have put him in the category of not winning, but maybe that's just me, because at the moment he's putting on a great performance. These kind of drivers, the likes of James Baldwin and Josh Rogers, are certainly the ones that can, and they, as you say, are leading their teams. As Josh Rogers leads his way down the inside, James Baldwin lets him have that one.
I think you said earlier Rogers not going for the move because he didn't want to cost himself time in that gap to the leader. Executed swap around, a calculated swap around from both parties there. James Baldwin not wanting to fight too hard, especially given that Bono House is running at the very back of the 12-car field for the time being. Just as I say that, seems like Mac Backham unfortunately drops to the very back, and so Josh Rogers second, Mac Backham 12th. It is only going to be 20 points as it stands right now for the Porsche Coanda Esports team. And this is something that we mentioned slightly earlier as well. Different teams have different expectations of how long we think will go before the first team enters finalist mode.
Yeah, some people have been, you know, early as race 5 for this, which I think is a ludicrous shortening of how this is going to go. Some teams think we could go on all night, but I don't think that's going to happen either. At the moment, some teams are going to take all night, as you mentioned, to get there. Still, well, Redline have gained another couple of points now. That's 6 for Benito and 3 for Bennett, so that's 9. That's still more than 15 races over the course of the day. That's not going to happen, you wouldn't imagine, because once again, you know, these field drivers are so close that they're not going to be in this order every time.
And that's the thing, right? Depending on how the order works out, you're not expecting to have both cars in the top 6 every single race. And we might end up with a situation, if we do see G2, for example, be able to be relatively consistent, maybe they can enter finalist mode at a time when every other team, the 5 other teams in competition, are going to need 3-4 races to reach that mark. That would give them a great advantage.
It would, but being in the top 6 with 2 cars is not the same. G2 Esports and Miles are proving that right now, because at the moment G2 would have 38 points, whereas Miles would only have 18, despite the fact they're both inside the top 6. And right now that could be put to an end with Enzo Benito closing in on Moritz Lerner. These two very much fighting on their own, with Timo Kazamo trying to join in. That was another lifting off of the throttle on the way in towards turn 1.
And behind them, Marcel Chinchik's had a big send up the inside of Luke Bennett. The master of Monza shows just why he loves this track, takes that opportunity, and Luke Bennett, with the lack of traction, the lack of top end speed in the BMW, going to drop down to 10th as Redline continue to struggle. Look at Bono House though, because he's got a great view as Chinchik swoops to the inside, forces Bennett to the outside to try and make the move, and into the Roger, back into line they will go.
Yeah, Bono getting pretty close to the back of Bennett there on the brakes. Thought for a second he might have broken a little bit too late to cause a domino effect, but got away with it. Chinchik has done pretty much all he can from this race, although he's only really gained 3 points with his overtakes. These are the problems. This is what we spoke about with Kuba Brzezinski yesterday. His slowdown throughout qualifying at this very circuit on race 6, I think it was, race 5. Certainly the second last drivers' pairings. He had just too much work to do, and while he did maximise his race in that respect, he still only picked up 6 or 8 points where he could have picked up more, and that's what Marcel Chinchik should be thinking right now.
There's a look at the trophy that they're all fighting for. I did get a chance to go pick it up just before this Championship Sunday started. I was surprised that it was a bit heavier than I was anticipating. I hope none of the drivers are thinking it's going to be light. Yuri Kastorp tucks into that draft of Isaac Price and now gives a shot to the back. And Yuri Kastorp, 14 penalty points, was only 1 penalty point away from a qualifying ban. Fortunately, Isaac Price not run off the road and is still holding on to that 4th position. But those are risks that Yuri Kastorp cannot afford to be taking.
Oh, Yuri Kastorp has just made a bit of an error there, I'm afraid. It's going to be, well, I think he's actually refraining from going through here. He was gaining on the BMW because of the Audi, but he'll be very frustrated with himself there. A little bit of a too late on the brakes, went into the back of Isaac Price just in front of him, and may well get penalty points for that, which could be a problem for Miles later on.
And the minimum penalty points that you get if you are involved in an incident and found at fault is 3. The most that you can get is 15. That would be quite egregious to get a qualifying ban for just one incident.
Yeah, well, yeah, you'd have to do something really reckless, as the rules state, to manage that. As we re-look at Marcel Chinchik's pass on Luke Bennett here. This looks like a pretty simple one in the end, just later on the brakes from the Audi. Bennett not giving that one up, but they're going to race actually a little bit more than I was expecting there, but once you hold the inside through Curva Grande, it's pretty much over.
Yeah, and there was the momentum again. BMW, maybe lack of traction that Redline have talked quite a bit about to me. And you can see just move made, Chinchik up into that 9th spot. Baldwin still works on the back though of Josh Rogers as we head on to the final couple of laps at the line. At one point the margin that Sebastian Job enjoyed had grown to almost 1.2 seconds, but as Joshua Rogers tends to do, he brings that just back in check. I do remember when Sebastian Job made his debut at the Nürburgring in ESL R1 earlier this season. He was in the same quarterfinal as Joshua Rogers. Final lap of the race, Job running up the front, Rogers running just behind. There'd been no move offered until the NGK chicane when Rogers said, you know what, I just want to remind you why we've been rivals for so many years.
Yes, the mind games going on between them, even in a quarterfinal. Wow, did he nearly hit the pit wall there? I think he's just weaving around to block the slipstream there. Yeah, it's the mind games that go on between those two, it really, isn't it? And that's fascinating to see, especially in a quarterfinal where it really doesn't matter at all, as this is one of the overtakes that is going to matter least all day long. Two RHG Esports cars swapping places, but it's smart for Chinchik to go ahead because Kazamon has less chance of catching those in front than Chinchik does.
And I really like this idea that it's not necessarily the team manager, Mehdi Al-Fathi, that is giving the instructions to Kazamon to let Chinchik go. It could be Marcel Chinchik queuing up on the radio and saying, Thibaut, you're not able to get on through. Give me a chance to close up tomorrow. It's one more lap to go. Valuable point that we need, given what a struggle it's been. Neither of the cars inside of the top 5 just about holding on to spots inside of the top 10. The top 3 have broken away though. Isaac Price somewhat under fire from Yuri Kastorp, and after the shove that we saw slightly early, you've got to wonder what's going through the mind of Kastorp.
Yeah, I'm certainly wondering, because it may just put him off from actually making this move at this point. Miles are having an all right race at the moment. They're first, sorry, they're not first, they're fifth and seventh, excuse me. That's 16 points for the moment. It's an okay start. It's certainly better than some of those around them, certainly better than Redline and RHG at the moment. You know, it's relatively near to Mercedes and Porsche, who've only really got one bullet in the gun up there in the top 6. So yeah, it's an all right start for Mauser. I think Kastorp really needs to be careful on those penalty points.
He really does. Fortunately, no penalty for this race because Isaac Price held on to that 4th position, because the penalty would have applied to Moritz Lohner as well. That likely would have dropped them to 11th and 12th. So just 1 point would have come out of this opening race. We're cycling on to the final lap here, though, at this wonderful Temple of Speed, the Monza circuit, of course, known for its treachery into turn number 1, but we've seen plenty of calm, cool, and well-executed moves. And now it's Yuri Kastorp that is going to try going the long way around on Isaac Price. The last time they tangoed, bit of contact between the two. Price has got the smallest of overlaps though as he commits to the braking zone, and it's going to be Kastorp that bullies Isaac Price into submission as they run out of the Roger.
He just made sure that he didn't shove Price into the gravel there on the outside line, and that was very important because that would have been penalty points, you would imagine, maybe even penalty in terms of seconds at the end of this race. He made sure not to do that. He's going on the defensive in towards the second chicane now as Price tries to come back at him. It's late on the brakes from the British man, and he's side by side, very close between them. Kastorp hangs on, and it's 4th place for the Mouse driver.
And they've got to watch behind because Moritz Lohner, Enzo Benito, and even Marcel Chinchik are getting stacked up as well. We've seen plenty of last lap drama here at Monza, and there's a queue of cars that's building. Up front still Joe from Rogers from Baldwin, now 4 seconds clear almost of these cars behind.
And maybe that was just a happy side effect of Kastorp making the move. Maybe this was the plan all along. Moritz Lohner loves an outside move in towards the Ascari. Surely he can't do it 3 times in 4 days. That would be unbelievable, and rightly so. He stays behind for the moment. It's going to have to be a last corner lunge if there's going to be any move of position there for 5th place.
Don't necessarily think up towards the front. We're seeing too much of snaking back and forth for the lead. I think James Baldwin's hoping he might be able to sneak a surprise to the inside. He'll look into that final corner. No send attempted, and Job from Rogers from Baldwin. 3 of the best in the sim racing world. 1 BMW, 1 Porsche, and 1 Mercedes. Championship Sunday starts off with a bang and with a shake-up in the order. Sebastian Job gets the job done for G2 Esports. Behind a drag race to the line, Castorp from Price from Loner.
Price just holds on to a 5th place there with Moritz Lerner hounding him right to the very end. Photo finish between them, but G2 Esports, what a start from them. 35 points out of 1 race, and it's Sebastian Job who takes the win.
And it was after the job in qualifying as well. First for Job, 3rd for Price. Yes, he dropped backwards through the course of the racing, but ultimately, it's about getting the results on the board.
Yep, and Sebastian Job has managed that for them. Isaac Price played his part as well, let's not forget. He did good defending throughout the day, but did bleed positions generally as the race went on. At least he stayed in front of Moritz Lerner there by thousandths of a second to hold on to that top 5.
We'll grab a look at some highlights of the start. It was a great drop of the clutch from Sebastian Job. No worries about the jump start that he had in his very first online final earlier this year. And then the draft given to Price enabled the BMW to swoop through that opening corner. Rogers would try to come back and cover off Baldwin as well, but Price very much getting the elbows out and holding station from there. But it wasn't to hold for very much longer for Price.
I'm pretty sure team manager Nick Daly went to bed dreaming of that last night, and it nearly happened for them. Well, it did happen for them at turn 1 and 2. Didn't hold on to it throughout the day, but what a start it was from Isaac Price. Got a good launch. You can see that his punch off the line is just better. Job covers off Rogers and then gives the slipstream to his teammate. Somewhat abnormal, because normally you want to defend the inside line towards turn 1 when you've got a challenge like that, but when you've got a teammate to help out, you'll do anything for them, and giving the slipstream was exactly what Job needed to do. A little bit aggressive with Price and Rogers there, but I think just enough space was given.
We do tend to see that the outside of turn 1 actually is a very viable opportunity. It's just the momentum you get on exit tends to be a little bit better. Here's the look on board with Josh Rogers. You can see just how much they were fighting in that opening race, but it was ultimately Sebastian Job that run away to take the victory. He's standing by with our hosts.
Sebastian, race 1 in the books. Awesome work. I've got to say, Isaac gave you a nice little bit of an opening at the start of the race, which was awesome, and then it kind of just was up to you to just maintain speed throughout that entire race. How did you feel throughout that? Did you feel any excessive pressure, or were you okay?
That was one of the most nerve-wracking 15 minutes ever, because I knew that my race pace that I was doing was good, but I knew it was right on the limit and I could have my tyres drop off at any second with the way this car is. And I also knew that if Josh got past, he would be really quick and hunting me down because he could save his tyres a bit behind James. So as soon as he got past, I was like, gotta do some great laps here. But yeah, luckily at the start, Isaac qualified near the front, helped me out. We were kind of chatting like, what's the strat here? What do we do? Do we go for a 1-2 or do we try and get me a gap? And I think in the end we went for the right result, which was to make Isaac defend into turn 1, try and not do anything stupid, but slow them down enough by battling to get me out of that slipstream range, and I could just about hold it for the rest of the race. Because once you get to 7 tenths, they really close in, and on that last 2 laps, Josh was hovering right around that. So.
سباستيان قدر يحقق النصر في هذا السباق، وسألنا أن كيف كان السباق بشكل عام بالنسبة لك. ذكر أن صحيح أنه بالنسبة له كان شوية صعب، خصوصا أن اللي كان وراه جاش، فكان يحاول ياخذ الصدارة عليه، يحاول يتقدم، يحاول يسبقه. فهو أنه كان حتى برضو مرتبك شوي بخصوص برضو حرارة الكفرات اللي كانت موجودة عنده، كان مسبب له ضغط مرة كبير. أول ما قدر أنه يتجاوز فيها جاش، فقدر أنه يتقدم مرة ثانية، فحاول أنه يرتاح، يصنع المسافات اللي يحتاجها بس السباق عشان يقدر يتفوق فيه، وفعلا حقق اللي عليه. لكن باقي السباق الجاي اللي راح يكون برضو ضغطه أكبر.
I guess there was also a little bit of luck involved that, you know, James and Josh were battling it out behind you as well, which also provided you a little bit of extra space. But next up, Nürburgring. What are your thoughts going into that? Obviously, very, very heavily kind of relies on the qualifying pace. So confident about that?
Yeah, I've not really hooked up a lap yet at Nürburgring, and I've done a couple races there, so hopefully I'm saving it for now. Like, I know my raw pace there is really good. It's just I've not actually done it yet. I've not shown it. So now's the time to do it.
فعلا السباق الجاي اللي راح يكون في مضمار نيربرغرينغ اللي راح نشوفه في المضمار القادم، فهل المتسابق راح يستمر برضو وكيف حتى برضو راح يتسابق فيه؟ ذكر انه صحيح انه الى الان في البطوله ما شارك فيه او ما تسابق فيه، بيكون شوي صعب، لكن بيحاول يسوي اللي عليه عشان يقدر يتفوق في السباق.
Well, you've taken the words right out of my mouth. Now is the time to do it, if there is any time at all. Congratulations on race 1. You've done an incredible job. Good luck going into race number 2. I'm holding out a spud, and you know what? I'm getting rejected. It's fine. It's because I'm holding this as well. I don't even need it. So,
I'm
going
saying
into, we're going to go over to the desk. Sorry, mate. We're going to go over to the desk so they can break everything down for our second race of our first group of drivers in the Team Championship Finals.
بالضبط. الحين اعزائي المشاهدين خلينا نرجع للاستديو نشوف تفاصيلها ونرجع لكم في السباق اللي بعده.